I understand that you watched a clip the other day that was done last year by Yahoo about my life in a nutshell. So I won't bore you to tears. I'll just tell you a little bit briefly about what Jenny and I do. Well, first of all, I'll give you a little background. I was born in California, Encino, California. So I'm a Valley girl, total Valley girl. And when I was 3 months old, I was diagnosed with a condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis, which I would never ask you to spell. It's crazy. And what it means is my retina's never developed. So basically what I see is the light around. I can tell that we have some beautiful lights on stage. And if there's sun outside, I can see the sunlight. And so actually, in a funny little way, vision helps me a lot. And but in a very strange way, in that I can only see light. So when somebody says, Laurie, walk towards the window, I can walk straight to it because I can see the sun coming into it. So my life immediately was different. I knew that my life was going to have a bit of a more circuitous journey than, say, a sighted person's life. So my parents, what they immediately did is they went and bought a van. And you might think that's a strange way to be proactive, but they felt that having a van to take me on road trips would be great so that I could explore the world with my four senses that I did have. So we went skiing, we went snow skiing, we went camping, and we went whitewater river rafting. And there was one time when we went river rafting where they told my parents that the front of the raft was the most dangerous place to be. And it's also where you get the most thrill, the best ride. And guess where I wanted to be? Right on the front of that raft. So I definitely caused a few gray hairs in my parents. That was, I guess, my way of rebelling, is, make them think that I might just be on the edge of death, right? 13. So, and then I also went snow skiing. And the way I went snow skiing was that I had a ski guide that would ski sort of several pieces either in front of me or behind me, depending on what kind of a run we were on. And they would say, okay, Laurie, right, left, right, and they would tell me where to go. And one time there was the time the guide said, right, oh no, I meant left! So I ended up almost skiing into a tree, but I sat before that because I realized something was wrong. So, we do have funny little things like that happen, but skiing was great. And there was actually one time that right before we decided to stop skiing and then go to Hawaii for the winter because it was much warmer, we went skiing, and it was 20 below or something like that the day before, and we didn't go. But then when we got there the day after, everything had frozen over, and we did a run, an expert run, what's called a black diamond. Some of you may have heard of a black diamond. So it's almost like a vertical straight down. So we went down, and I was with my guide, and my parents said, okay, we'll meet you at the bottom. And my guide was saying right, left, but I couldn't hear him because it was so icy. All I could hear was, from my skis. So what I did was I just went, okay, if I make a right and I hit something, that would be bad. So I'm just going to go straight because I can't hear what he's saying. Well, if you go straight, that means you go really fast because the turns slow you down. Well, I was down in about a minute and a half, and I thought that I went the wrong direction because I didn't hear. I was calling the name of my ski guide, calling my parents, calling my brother. Nobody answered. Turns out about 2 minutes later, the rest of them joined me, and they were hustling it up to get to me. And my mom looked at me and she said, don't you ever do that again. So that, just my life has been full of adventure. And my parents never told me no. They always wanted me to do everything that they did and that my brother did. My brother was 5 years older. And when I was in school, I discovered that I love singing. And part of that was that because I had met somebody you may not know of, he'll sound like an old guy to you, but Kenny Loggins. My mom met him in the supermarket. We ended up becoming friendly with him. And he's the one who wrote Footloose. He wrote a lot of the music in the show Footloose, and for that movie, and several other really kind of famous songs in the 80s. So we went backstage to see him in concert from when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, around 4 years old. And then we just kept hanging out with him and being his total shameless groupies. And we would go snow skiing with him. My dad would take pictures. That was his hobby, so he was going to be Kenny's unofficial photographer. And one day, when I was 8 years old, we were in a speedboat with Kenny and a bunch of his band members. And everybody was going water skiing, including my brother and my parents. And I said, I want to go water skiing. And Kenny heard that, and he got an instructor on board, and I learned how to water ski. And it was Kenny Loggins who took all those pictures. And then when I was 12 years old, he had me sing on his album. So that was cool. I got to be in a recording studio. I'm like singing. He asked me to scat solo on one of his songs. So I was like, yeah, doing the whole thing. And when like me, I was 12 and I was completely shameless. Like I just kind of sang whatever. And like we had, I heard him say, okay, backup vocals, a little bit louder, softer, whatever. It was just really cool to see how that all worked and all these big mixing boards and controls and being in Capitol Records. It was really awesome. That's what happens when you live in LA. You get to be so close to the music industry. And then I saw Phantom of the Opera, and that's when I decided that I wanted to sing opera for some reason. I just heard that music and it just transported me. So I started taking voice lessons shortly after having worked with Kenny, and I started singing pop music, but then when I saw Phantom, I told my teacher I wanted to do opera. And when I got to high school is when I really started competing, I started doing choir, I started doing all sorts of things, and like some of you might be doing that, and some of you might be doing sports, but I got really serious into music. And then I went to college for music and grad school. And it was just, I had a really wonderful experience, and then I moved to New York City. And actually, I met Jenny in New Haven. We went to Yale together, and she came my second year there. And we had a mutual best friend who introduced us, and that's how we got to know each other. And so she asked me to sing on her recital. And it was like that, the rest is history. We've been performing together for years, and we moved to New York together, and we started a music ensemble called Music à la Mode, and we had all our friends play music with us, and we sang all over, and we performed all over. Jenny was a clarinetist, and is still a clarinetist, and she's also one of those people who's good at everything. So she plays the piano, the guitar, the kazoo, no, I'm just kidding. The piano and the guitar and clarinet, and can pretty much pick up anything and make it make noise, which is pretty cool. I can't do that. So it took me years to get the sound out of a Coke bottle. So now, it's really funny. It came full circle because now we decided that there was one day we were in New York, and Jenny said, I love performing, but you know what I would love to do even more than that is to come back to where I was from, and she's from Hawaii, and I want to start a school of music there. And she had very specific ideas, and I was really excited. So I went with her to Hawaii. We decided to move, and we started a performing arts program called Ohana Arts, and that's how we met. Do they call you Jill? They call you Miss Bolstridge. Okay, Miss Bolstridge. That's where we met her because we had asked for an acting coach, and so she came to Hawaii, and she did an amazing job with our kids. And we had a musical theater program, and we have a program for kids to write music, and we are in our 5th year, so we've been doing this for 5 years now in Hawaii. And but I tell you all of this great stuff that happened in my life, and it has been. I've had this awesome life. Jenny and I just got married last summer, and that was really awesome. But you know what? There was a time that things weren't so great, and that was when I was in middle school. Because when I was in middle school, I had taken it for granted that my family treated me normally, and most everybody did. But when I got to middle school, I was in a school very much like this one. It was actually a little bit smaller even, and none of the students had ever met anyone who was blind at all, and ever. And so they treated me sort of like an alien. Like, they didn't know what to do. And I certainly wasn't cool. And I had a big backpack I put on my back with my computer and a zillion Braille books. But this is not like your cute little Apple computer. It's cool to have an Apple computer or, an iPad or whatever, a netbook, whatever you have. In those days, people just didn't have that. We had these huge Toshibas or Dells or whatever they were that were basically like 3 bricks thick, So I looked like just an eyesore. I would come into class with my big bag, and people would stare at me and go, "What is this that just walked in?" And so I wanted to be like friends, and I wanted to have a wonderful time and just have a great middle and high school experience. But what ended up happening was that nobody would talk to me. I would come and try to have a conversation, and people would be having a great conversation. I'd walk up and it would get silent, and they would. So one day I went on a school trip when I was in 8th grade. And the teachers were terrified to have a blind person. See, they had never, dealt with that before, so they didn't realize I could go snow skiing and water skiing and whitewater rafting. So they thought that I was this porcelain doll that, I might fall or I might hurt myself. So they wanted me to have a chaperone come with me. And we went went to Catalina, and which is a very nature-oriented place. So I had to bring my own chaperone, right? So this was a family friend of ours. I brought somebody who was still of that kind of cool age because she was still a teenager. She was 18, so old enough to be an adult, but still with teen in her age, so she was relatively cool. And so she was sort of there to look out for me, but lo and behold, she actually became really close friends with all the kids that hated me or wouldn't talk to me. So one day we sat on a bench and I said, you know, can you tell me what it is? What's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Do I have a funny smell? I mean, like, what? I don't understand. Like, why won't the kids talk to me? And she sighed, and she said, well, Laurie, you can't expect to have friends. Like, you know, you're never going to have a normal life. You're never going to have a job. You're never going to have romance, because if you can't, you know, see the person that you're going to have your first kiss with in the moonlight, how are you supposed to have romance? And you'll probably live with your parents your whole life. And little by little, my self-esteem is dropping down into my stomach, right? And I had feared that. I was so worried. Not only did I fear that, but I was so worried that that's what people thought of me. And so I went home and I told my mom, I told her what happened. And she said, I said, why did you make me think that I was going to be normal? Why have you been lying to me my whole life? And she said, of course you're going to be normal. She said, you know, of course you're not going to have romance in 7th grade. If you do, like, your dad is going to kill you, you know. You know. And, you know, of course you're going to have a job because you're already doing lots of singing and da-da-da. And, you know, you're not going to live with me your whole life. I won't allow it. So, you know, never in my wildest dreams as an 8th grader would I ever have guessed that I'd be standing in front of you today, married, co-running a performing arts organization with so many amazing people, including, you know, Jenny and working with Ms. Bolstridge. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that my life would be so full, and I have so many great, lovable friends in my life. I get to sing with orchestras all over the world. I get to do operas. I get to be, last year we were in Switzerland, Italy, Paris, you know, all sorts of places. As a little 8th grader, and because I was a lot smaller, that was another problem. I was small, you know, so I grew, thankfully, a little bit more than I was then, you know. But at that time, I didn't imagine that was going to happen to me. And what I realized years later is that what people need is a song. They need a song that's going to share a story, that very story that I just shared with you. But then to look back on it and say, look, my life is so great, and your life is going to, everybody in this room has a bright future ahead of them, no matter what they're going through. And so when Jenny and I moved to Hawaii, we decided also to write a pop album. So here we do classical music together, but now we're also producing a pop album. And in a month or so, we're going to have a music video for that song, as well as the single coming out on iTunes. And it's called The Girl I Am. And it's dedicated to every single one of you. And I really sincerely hope that you all have much better 8th grade experiences than I had. But if any of you have ever felt isolated, or have ever been, let's use, I guess, the B word, bullied, or if anyone has ever felt different, this is the song that we dedicate to you.